Right, welcome. So I've sold the business. I've been for the past, I think, 2 years. My marketplace software, actually my marketplace business called vetted.com. I think the very first video on this channel is exactly the video of us building it. Just scroll down and click the very first one. I think it's pretty cool. It's me and my co-founder in my parents' basement, literally, right, building it from scratch the whole year. So it's pretty cool. And yeah, I wanted to record this video right now that I finally sold it, right, to break down what we did, right, in terms of building it, scaling it, and now exiting it, or selling it, right? So hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and learn a bit more about what we did, how we did it, and why we did it. First things first, make any life-changing money. Just know that, right? I didn't make like hundreds of millions of dollars, of course. But yeah, our marketplace grew from, I think the very first year, zero to over $300,000 in sales. That's GMV, so gross merchant value, like the transaction. So when you go on Amazon and you buy a product for $50, right, Amazon takes a cut. Amazon doesn't make $50. Part of it, or most of it, goes to the seller. So we, the marketplace as a whole, the business, transacted over $300,000. I think it was $350,000, and we take a commission, right? We only took a commission from it. So the marketplace, of course, the multiple is based on the actual the marketplace makes. So yeah, I didn't make life-changing money, but just know that people try and inflate the numbers. I think I'm almost also guilty of this sometimes, because that's what gets clicks, right? But just know that we didn't make life-changing money, and there's not all of it is profit, right? There's a lot of nuance to it, so just know that. I think that's the very first thing I wanted to tell you. I'm looking here at my notes, so I don't lose myself. But yeah, even though I didn't make life-changing money, I wouldn't be here, right? I wouldn't be here in this position, having sold my first software company, if I hadn't done things before, right? Because I think of these small wins as stepping stones, right? Us building the marketplace, scaling it, and now selling it is a stepping stone to the next big thing I want to do, right? That I'm going to do, that I'm currently already doing, right? And all the things before, right? I don't think I better talk about this, but yeah, me selling like Minecraft maps, selling e-cigarettes to my friends, drop shipping, having an agency, doing freelancing, doing SEO stuff, all these were like stepping stones, and each one of them, right? The drop shipping made me learn a lot of things. That made me upgrade, I guess, to owning an agency, right? And then all this made me upgrade and all this knowledge to building an actual software business, which requires hiring people, managing, it requires so much stuff, right? And I would have never had started in software if I hadn't had done all the things before. So I think about these small wins, and every time you make money and sell something, as little stepping stones, right? That are required for you to grow and do bigger things. Because I know for a fact that what we're doing right now is going to be 100 times bigger than the marketplace we've built. But we would never have been able to have the ability, right, to build this new stuff if we hadn't had built all this stuff before, right? Hopefully this makes sense. So yeah, I think about these small wins as little stepping stones. And if you're in business, if you're doing anything in the business, right, think about what you're doing currently as a stepping stone to the next thing, because you learn so much, right? You learn so many things, and you gain sensibility, and you learn so much stuff that's going to be valuable to the future. And oftentimes people think, I'm not making that much money. This sucks. I want to change business. I want to do different things. But what you're doing right now is you're learning, and all that learning doesn't go to right. You can apply it, and you will apply it to your next endeavor. So that's the very first thing I wanted to say, because I do think about these things a lot. I do think about that this is the big stepping stone for what's to come, and it was a stepping stone in my journey from previous things that I've done in the past. So yeah, I'm just sorry looking here at my notes so I don't lose myself. But yeah, also, right, you can watch these videos, you can like read books, watch seminar tutorials, but you'll only learn really by doing. And I know this is super clickbait, but the only way that you're actually going to build a business and succeed isn't by watching this. I mean, this hopefully is helpful to some extent, but I'm going to tell you the mistakes I made, the things that you shouldn't do, but most likely you are going to do them, right? Because you don't know it any better, right? Even though I tell you don't do this, most likely your instincts are going to be the other way around. You're going to do it as well, because self-help tutorial videos help, but only to a certain extent. The best way to learn stuff is to actually do them. Again, super cliche, but if you actually go out and do stuff, don't just focus on the theory, right? You're going to be succeeding so much faster. So I wanted to just throw that in there, because I think it's important, right? And know that, of course, most things are going to fail, right? The most things you do are going to fail. And it's all about iteration, right? iterate over and over and over again. And that ties in really well with what we've built, right, with the software. Because the very first mistake I made, because I had never built a software business, was building what we call an MVP, which is a minimum viable product. But I built it to a way that it was super exaggerated, right? Our MVP was almost the final product. And oftentimes I give this analogy, and I have videos on the channel. I think 2 weeks ago I published a video on this, which is you have this great vision of, let's call your software business or any business, right? Let's call it a software because it's software. You have this vision of the greatest software you want to build. And let's do an analogy, right? You have this vision of this great building you want to build, right? A 10-story high building with floor-to-ceiling windows, a helipad on top, right? Huge rotating door at the door, right? Bushes, like beautiful building, right? This is your vision. This is what you want to build. And the mistake you make, or the mistake I made, and oftentimes a lot of people make, is, okay, I have this vision in my mind. I want to build this, so I'm going to hire someone to build all this, right? Build a huge building with the floor-to-ceiling windows, with a helipad on top, plated in gold, glows in the dark, amazing thing, and you spend months. I mean, we spent a year. We spent a full year building the product, which was super stupid looking back, right? We spent a full year building it before launching, right? Which is dumb, right? Why? Because we were building things that I thought people wanted, right? Because I thought, okay, this is my vision. I know everything. I know what people want. Let's just build it. It's wrong, right? Because when we actually put the product live, right, a year later, right, a ton of features that I had envisioned that I spent time and money hiring to do, right? They weren't even used, right? For example, I think we had I think it was the consulting calls feature, right? Which was pretty cool at the time, right? You could hire people and have consulting calls with them. Nobody was using it at the start, right? Because there weren't enough people even to use it, right? So these little things. And so what I've learned now is that, yes, you have this vision of this gold-plated building, huge building, floor-to-ceiling windows, right? Helipad on top. But try to tone it down by 100x, right? Okay, you have the idea that you want this building, which is a place where people can get in. Okay, that's the most basic thing. A building is somewhere where people can get in and sleep, right? So tone it down, right? Build a mud hut, right? A hut built of mud and no windows, no door, right? Just a mud hut where people can get in and sleep, right? So you have this huge building, but you tone it down to a mud hut, right? And then once people start coming into the mud hut to your business, right, they're gonna start complaining and telling you, listen, there's no doors, cold comes in at night. So then you build a door, right? Then they're going to say, it's so dark in here. Can you make some windows? Okay, then you make the windows. And then more people want to come in, but there's only one story in your mud hut. So, okay, now build another story. Now build another one. Then you realize, okay, but for this mud hut to hold itself, it cannot be made out of mud. It needs to be made out of bricks. So you build it out of bricks, right? You change the mud for bricks. So you build this, you iterate over and over again based on customer feedback. And that's, again, one mistake that we've made, and this applies to software, this applies to anything, right? This applies if you're building a landing page, if you're creating a website, anything, right? You got to tone it down by 10,000%, right? It's super, super important. Hopefully, again, like I said before, this is like the theory, and most likely when you're doing it, you're not gonna follow this advice, but try to, because I made a mistake and it was a painful mistake. Because again, we spent a full year building it. Instead, we could released a shitty MVP, like a shitty minimum viable product out there to the market and iterate back based on the customer feedback, which is exactly what we're doing right now. And it's so much faster because customer feedback is what grows the business, right? It's not you thinking you want this, this, and that. It's customer feedback. Yes, of course, you should have, of course, also your vision, right, in the back of your head, right? The gold-plated building that glows in the dark, that has the helipad, the floor-to-ceiling windows, all that. But keep that in the back of your head, right? And try to tone it down and build a mud hut to reach that thing, right? Because again, you might be wrong. People might not want a gold-plated building, right? People might not want a helipad. They might want a slide. Hopefully this analogy is making sense, because it was a very painful thing, and hopefully you don't do the same, because we did that. I did that at the time because I didn't know any better. Other thing is that if you are building software, I would recommend not to hire people. I recommend to partner up, because when you hire someone, they don't have vested interests, right? You are just hiring them, and that's what I did, right? I hired someone, my now good friend and co-founder Fonsu. I hired him back then because I had the funds to do so. So I thought, I'm not going to give him equity. Why would I give him equity, which is my most valuable possession? I'm just going to pay him a large sum of money so he can build the product. That's what I did, right? paid him, and we started building this together. And I was very happy because, okay, I just had paid this guy and I had all the equities, all this was mine, amazing. But then, because the person you paid to or the agency you paid to build your product doesn't have vested interest in continuing, sorry. And me, I'm not a technical co-founder, right? And because of that, I always need someone that's technical. And what started happening is that my now good friend Afonso, once he finished the product, right, because we had spent a year building it and then we only launched it, right? When we launched it, we didn't make money right off the bat, right? We weren't like super rich right off the bat. So I didn't have any money to keep on paying him to work for me as the software developer for the marketplace, because it's a matter of opportunity cost, right? He had other offers, right? He had people in the States wanting to pay more. He had other people, right? He could get a normal job, more safe, with people paying him more. Why would he work for a startup where he has zero equity? It's a lower pay, right? Why would he do that, right? And so what I had to do when I noticed that he wanted to go out is I had to give him a bit of equity. I gave him 5% to sort of lock him in. And that's how it works, right? Oftentimes you see people, big businesses doing this to their workers, right? Give them pieces of equity to lock them in, right? And the equity has to be vested, right? So you give them 5% and they can only sell the stock, right, in 2 years. So essentially you're locking them in for 2 years, kind of, right? Because if they leave, they don't get the equity. So that's what I did. Like I gave him equity to lock him in for a few more months, and it worked, right? It worked, but eventually, of course, it wasn't enough, and he left, right? And because I'm not a technical co-founder, I had to go and hire someone else, right? And when you're not a technical co-founder, things are very hard because you have to get your developer, right? I had to get Afonso, and then me and him had to go and interview all these different developers, right? And that's costly, like to spend a lot of time with that and interview all of them. And when you find finally someone, you have to pass the code, right? You have to teach the new developer the code, how things work, why they work like this. And in the meantime, there's bugs, there's things going wrong. So it's very, very hard, right? It's very, very hard. Maybe I did a lot of things wrong, which I'm sure I did, but it's very, very hard to give another developer, another technical person, a technical co-founder or person, I guess, the baby that the other founder built. And that was very hard for us and a mistake, right? Because if I had from the start given equity to Afonso, 50%, right, we most likely wouldn't have had sold Veta, because what happened was when I was alone, right? I had 95% of the business, but I was essentially alone, right? And I thought to myself, why would I be alone with 95% when I could be 50% with someone else and grow something to 100 times bigger? And that's what we're doing now. But going back to my point is, try to partner up. Don't pay someone, because when they're finished doing the work, they're going to leave, right? And when they do leave, it's a pain in the ass to get someone else, right? And you don't want to have constantly people coming and leaving, especially when you're not a technical co-founder, right? And to prevent that, right, because it takes trust me, it takes a ton of time, right? Passing the code and teaching the other people or persons the code takes so much time. And the way you can combat this is by giving a small, 50% of the equity. So very, very important. And if you're going to hire, right, hire the absolute best people, right? I have a quote right here, which I really like to hear, which is, cheap labor is more expensive than expensive labor, or hiring cheap is more expensive than hiring expensive. Because when you hire cheap people, I mean, cheap people, right? People that their hourly rate is less, right? For some reason there is, because they have less experience, right? Yeah, you might feel good. Oh, I'm just saving so much money, but you're going to spend 10 times the amount of time teaching them, going back and forth with them. They're less autonomous, right? They're less smart in technical terms, and you end up paying more, right? So if you're hiring or partnering up, whatever you do, I recommend you do partner up, especially if you're not a technical co-founder, you want to build a technical product, you need to partner up, right? If you're building an agency, dropshipping, whatever, right? If you can do the whole thing, right? I do prefer the idea of partnering up, because you go further, right? Alone you might go faster, but together you go further. Another cliche, but it's super true. But yeah, hire the best of the best, because that's going to make a huge difference. And if you're surrounded by people that are smarter than you, you're going to kill the competition. Be much, much better. Something else that which is quite obvious, is that distribution, right, is more important than product. But product, of course, is still very much important. But nowadays, I think always has been like that, but software products, which, it's what I've built, right? The marketplace, now this new one, these are software products. They are easier, or they haven't become a commodity, but nowadays they're easier to build, right? So the person who wins is the one that has the biggest distribution channel, because I can have a shit product with an amazing distribution, right? Let's say I have Cristiano Ronaldo recommending it on his Instagram, right? Versus an amazing product, but nobody knows about it, right? The product that's going to win is the shittiest one with, the better distribution. And don't forget that even though the product is shittier, you can always improve and iterate based on customer feedback. So this all ties up with the things that you should start with a shitty product, a mud hut, right? And then go from there, iterating based on customer feedback, and focus heavily on distribution, focus heavily on acquiring clients, outbound, inbound, social media marketing. All this stuff, I talked about it on the channel before. I think I have a video on this, on how to market your software. Focus on that heavily, right? And that's why it's important to partner, because you have the co-founder that does all the technical work, right? The building of the product, and then you have the other half of the business, which is you, or it depends, but that does the marketing, the distribution. And not to say that the product isn't important, but again, a shit product with amazing distribution is always going to outgrow a amazing product with no distribution, right? Because you can have the best product in the world, but again, if nobody knows about it, you get what I'm saying. Sorry. Also in the same line, I have it here, is that with a software product, you might think, I'm just going to hire someone. I'm not going to give equity to anyone. I'm just going to hire an agency. They build a product and it's done, right? The reality is that software, right? There's always things breaking. So you just might think, just have to build it and then put it on the market and then just do marketing, to distribution to grow it. No, things always break. And even though, let's say you want to build it as is and you don't want to add new features, even if you don't add new features, things will break. Things always break. That's why you need a technical founder on your side. And finally, last thing here, because this is a very, very long video, is selling a business is only as slow as you want it. We had offers for multiple high six figures, but the offer itself wasn't good, right? We took a less valuable offer, but it was almost like literally an upfront payment. Not upfront, was a 6 months phased out payment, right? That's what the offer we took. But there were offers, like big offers, that were high six figures, like I said, mid six figures, mid low six figures. But I had to work for them for 2 years, 24 months, right? So they would pay me that, but I had to work with them, along with them for 24 months. I had to hit some revenue numbers, right? Some targets. And you see a lot of these $100 million exits, but you never see the terms of the exit, right? What if it's $100 million, but you have to work with the business for the next 5 years, and you only get paid that $100 million if you hit certain revenue targets, right? And that might be good or not, depends on your situation. But in terms of myself, I have to look at the opportunity cost, right? I wanted to get rid of this as fast as I could, so I could jump to the next thing. So I can jump with my to building the next product, which I feel like will give us 100x what this gave us, right? And so just know that when it comes to exits, when it comes to the numbers you see online, take it with a grain of salt, right? A couple months ago, I think, on Twitter, these guys sold, I think, Tweet Hunter, an app for Twitter to automatically post Twitters and schedule tweets for $10 million. But it's only $10 million if they hit some revenue targets for a couple of years, right? So they have to kind of still work for the business. So just know that, right? You can either take less money up front and don't worry about a thing, or take more money, but then you have to worry about a lot of things. And I didn't want that worry in my mind. I just wanted to finish this chapter in my life, right? We've built it from zero. We grew it from zero, scaled it to over $300,000 in the first year, and then we sold it. I think it's a win. I really like what we've done. I learned so much, and I'm glad I can share this with you. And hopefully, if you like this video, you can like it, share it, and comment down below. And thank you so much for watching, and more videos of this to come. And cheers. I'll see you probably next week or maybe the other week. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.